¿Y ya está streameando? ¿Tú estás streameando?
Sí, está.
Hey girls.
Yes.
You're
We're on?
You're on.
Right now we're live?
You're live.
yeah.
Hi.
Bye.
Hold on.
Birthing
Hold
the
on.
Afro-Future.
Pero Instagram.
We need a mic.
Yes, Instagram.
¿Es el tuyo, verdad, viejón?
Are these the ones from? Nope. These
Sí.
are all them. We broke it fresh.
Where's the hyphen?
Ok, rola el enlace de eso para que lo podamos ver nosotros.
Where? Here?
Yeah. May I have
Where?
Yes,
Where?
right here.
¿Cómo lo sharreo?
We're gonna put the phone horizontal. Is that right, or do you prefer to
Whatever
keep it?
you want, whatever you think
For
is
you
best.
to be
I don't
both
know.
in the shot.
Hold on, let me put the title. Birthing.
You got 2 content viewers right now.
Hey, hi. How y'all doing? We're getting
dicen Miguel de
Miguel, la voz.
started.
What? Un micrófono
Zapatos.
no está funcionando.
Zapatos.
Es el tuyo que no está funcionando. Es este.
Perdón.
Que te compro uno nuevo, dice. Que le
Se va,
salga el
se va a enojar Alexander, güey. Me va a cobrar.
Ya están. Se supone que los audios deben estar sincronizados hasta acá.
It's live.
¿Cómo sabes?
Sí.
Porque todo lo ves almacén, ¿sí?
¿Son estos dos?
Hi y'all, we're here in the studio for the first time, getting ready to go live. Piper and I have a podcast that we haven't told y'all about.
el streaming.
But we are super excited to tell y'all about and to explore
El
some
enlace.
Ahorita te lo doy, ahorita te lo doy.
things.
Topics, challenges, triumphs
Yeah.
from the birthing and parenting spaces, both now and what we vision for the Afro-Future, right?
Exactly. So today's topic is going to be birthing the Afro-Future. This is something that, honest, and even when I hear that, I immediately think of like an Afro sci-fi, like
For sure.
like just like plot. I'm just thinking like, and also thinking about how audacious that is. I think that when we're especially coming against challenges, when we're coming against oppression, we talk about having a historical experience with oppression, is very much so, it can zap the imagination. Like it's very hard for you to think of anything else outside of that. When you're so committed to fighting and changing and transforming and eradicating, we sometimes forget to imagine.
I totally agree. I feel like the struggle is such a very narrow lens. And because so many of us are only introduced to our history from like a period of struggle and have no idea about the eons prior, it really doesn't give us a whole lot of room to imagine just outside of struggle and strife and challenge.
Yeah.
And in that way, imagination and visioning for a future is a revolutionary act.
Absolutely.
It's a revolutionary act.
Absolutely.
I think Auntie Octavia taught us that, right?
Yeah.
And now it's so interesting to be sitting here in 2025, like the year that she had set
Literally.
one of her triumphant works in,
Yeah.
and be using some of those tools
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
really muddle our ways through, up and out.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the Afro-Future in general is something that I love to explore. I feel like my whole life is a manifestation of that. I feel like it's like this dance of acknowledging the real. So the reality, the real, yes. The numbers and our outcomes are horrendous as Black birthing people. And I don't get to escape that. Because I'm a midwife. I don't get to escape that because I know something or I did research or I have connections this way or that way. And there's also agency still. And I think that when we talk about, the Afro-Future, it's about Black bodies being fully situated in their agency. Being able to be like, y'all over there telling me that I'm not good enough or you want to ignore this or that about me. Well, my friend, I'm going to be audacious. I'm going to be bold and say, you thought not, but here we are.
Absolutely.
Okay, turn the music off.
No, it's okay.
We vibing, that's
we don't
why.
mind a little music.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want YouTube to what's it called?
Flag us for...
No, don't worry.
Pausa la música.
There we go. It's fine. But yeah, let's introduce ourselves.
Okay. How about that?
Just giving a chance for those to join us. Welcome to our pilot podcast episode for All the Things. This is a podcast project that Piper and I have been vibing with and conjuring up through our own gestation and birthing processes for our most recent birthing experiences, both of us. And it kind of birthed from that. It really
totally
did. Yeah.
It definitely came right through the channel. I think we both opened up a little space and it jumped right in.
Yeah, absolutely. Piper and I are, I'm just talking about by myself. Okay, talk about yourself, Sumi. My name is Sumayyah, aka Sumi. It's my nickname. Everything for me is Sumis Touch from TikTok, YouTube, my website, Instagram. I am a traditional midwife and a mother, and I am committed. I am married to the mission of eradicating the Black maternal health crisis. And this week, I've hosted my inaugural Black Maternal Health Festival. So this live stream really is in celebration of that. Mm-hmm. This podcast project is gestating right now. It hasn't been born, but we wanted to give y'all a little taste little sample of what we are cooking up.
Yes, I love that. So
Who are you?
Piper Lovemore. You can call me Pipe. And I am a mother and midwife as well, and also love the role of being a mentor to up-and-coming folks in the birth work and motherhood spheres, as well as, little people. I have been absolutely loving this process with Sumi. We have just been sort of cooking this up through a number of just juicy conversations that we've shared in the spaces that we have overlap, and finding real nourishment from like some resonance there that we haven't necessarily found in a lot of other spaces. Trusting that there are those of you out there who too are seeking that kind of reflection or just that vibe of feeling seen. And so we thought we wanted to elevate it a little bit more and open up some of these conversations. Also engage and see what the feedback is, and find each other out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of put like our little what's it called? Like put out our
breadcrumbs, paper trail seeds that we're planting.
And they go, ooh, I want some of that, and just you could follow it along.
Buffet of.
But also invite you all on the journey of birthing this. You can midwife us, doula us through the gestation process to birth this project. So asking you some of your feedback, some of your advice. What do you want to see? What do you want to talk about? So today, we thought, we have a lot of different topics that we talk about organically, and we thought today we would focus on birthing the Afro-Future. So we kind of started off already talking about it a little bit, but let's go a little bit deeper into it.
Yes, I'm here for it. I would like to, at the top of the convo, give a shout out to my sister, Ingrid LaFleur. I think I mentioned her too at one point. She's a brilliant mind who creates these spaces online for people to contemplate the Afro-Future from a number of different angles. She has one about elder care. She has one around sexuality and relations. I think she did one recently on housing. But a couple of months ago, I guess now, I was able to catch her world build on birthing in the Afro-Future. I thought it was a prank. I'm like, how is this so perfectly for me? Did anyone else get this in their inbox, or is this just mine?
A personal invite.
A personal invite, right. And it was so interesting to show up in that space and see the other minds that were interested in looking at a topic like that. It was really a very diverse group of people. We had elders, we had younger folks, we had people of various gender identities. And I really was grateful to have that kind of diversity in our world build, because I have a very biased opinion, I suppose. I'm so saturated in the concept of birth, and I think really living into trying to build an Afro-Future, that it was actually really awesome to get feedback from folks who aren't obsessed. You know what I mean? Yeah. Tap in a little bit with reality beyond my focal point.
Or like a bubble.
Exactly. Pop the bubble a little bit.
Pop the bubble, absolutely.
And engage. And so that was a really amazing space. And it helped me understand, too, that a lot of folks are not as influenced by some of the challenges that we see. You know, a lot of times our focus is like, we need to stop this harm and eradicate, you know, these people having access to the space. And some folks are really just focused on, like, what does it look like? Will we be in a hospital? Will we be flying to the birth? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The really sort of basic playful spaces. So that's a long-winded intro to tell you that I also discovered, I think the future looks a lot like the past. I think that it's not necessarily high tech. That's what I mean. It's not necessarily fully tech oriented, but rather in a space where we've really confidently reclaimed our tools to do things organically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right now I'm just actually literally trying to envision it, like literally like the details of like what would it look like in the next 2 generations to say I'm pregnant, or to say I'm exploring if I even want to be pregnant. I've decided I want to be pregnant. What does that look like to become pregnant? What does the trying to conceive process look like, right? Do we have certain ceremonies? Do we have certain spaces, like little hubs? Like the midwives that opened up for us on last Thursday, they had mentioned how each midwife has her nicho. She has like her little nest, and and that nest is the foundation of the community care that she gives. In there is her apothecary, and there are her tools, and there is even a room for prenatal care, for any type of care, really, any care. If you just felt like you needed a break, you can come to her house.
Okay.
And say, I'm going to spend the night tonight because I need some soft place to land.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
All the way to this mama actually, it's important for her to get more rest before this baby comes. And a more like, you know, like health driven reason, we're going to take care of her here in the nicho, right? That it's not even a question of her thought. Like, of course you'll go to the nicho. Where else would you go?
Right.
And I feel like for me, when I'm thinking about the Afro-Future, when you mentioned it looks like the past, more than it's like, you know, the Jeffersons, like super tech.
Right, Jetson era.
Jetson era, the Jetson era. You know, it's not like that. It's more so something that was understanding and responsive to our needs for physiological care and birth, or physiological pregnancy and birth and postpartum. What does it look like, therefore? So for me, my biggest critique about a hospital is that when you walk in, it's not considering a laboring person's psyche, right? Or physiology. Right? Like there should be, I would think, like a home-like place that was separate from the hospital visually, but maybe connected. It could be like a hallway that connects right to the OR, for instance, right? But what you see when you walk in is a home-like, down-regulated setting.
Okay.
The soft lighting.
Absolutely.
The people that you see, you've been seeing your entire pregnancy. There's no new faces.
Please, can we start there?
There's no new faces. These are the same people that you've already seen. If you're even going outside your home to give birth, to start there too,
How about
right?
that?
So if this is a place that people go to give birth, it's definitely not called a hospital. Because association already is just, we need to just disengage.
And because that's overkill.
It is. It is over. It's literally not needed. It's not necessary for the vast majority of people. So why are we prioritizing that as the standard? And I'm like, the lighting's soft. The textures around you are soft and comfortable. They move and they expand. So there's like hammocks and balls and pillows of all kind of sorts, and it's just a bed. This bed looks like the bed in your bedroom. However, maybe it has other functions.
Right.
But it looks like the bed in your bedroom.
We got a nice waterproof mattress.
There we go.
But some linens that are also really nice, comfortable fabrics. The kind of fabrics, and even like down to the detergents.
There we go.
The kind of thing that I'm comfortable putting my newborn on, because if they're born right here, they're going to curl up next to me. We're not going to be moving to a different space to lay down.
I wear whatever I want to wear, and I'm really encouraged to wear nothing. Right? Really encouraged the emphasis on wearing something. Like, why are you emphasizing that for birth?
Absolutely.
It should be the quite opposite. It's all about being like unraveling
and uninhibited, and so we have space because some women feel more comfortable, you know, in a more modest
which is totally fine.
Whatever encourages you to free up.
You choose it.
It's a non-issue.
It's a non-issue, and you choose it, whatever you
Absolutely.
want. Maybe we have options here, options of robes and options
luxurious things that can let you live your full regal fantasy if that's what you desire.
It's soft and it's fluffy and it's, you don't have to worry about the staining because really maybe it goes home with you. Maybe it's like a whole system. It just goes home with you. So because that's also a thing, right? Like these things aren't mine. I can imagine, I haven't given birth in that type of environment, but I can imagine how my mind will be thinking like, oh, I don't want to like ruin this thing.
Yes, I can relate to that. I just gave birth in a rental, and I remember that being a factor in that it actually influenced my choices in the labor space. Like, ooh, what if?
So imagine the entire place was like that, Piper, and everybody around you were complete strangers.
Yeah,
right?
I definitely think that you're on the right track. Yeah. You're on the right foot. And I really also love that you couch this with 2 generations, because I think that when we think about the Afro-Future, it can go really long focus, and that's when we get into like Jetsons territory and everything starts to be chromed out.
Yeah.
But pulling it back to within 2 generations, that's almost tangible, right?
Yeah.
It might be just beyond our reach. And so to me, what that looks like in terms of the framework is restoring midwifery to a place of authority within the community in 2 ways. I would also like to restore obstetricians to their place of expertise.
Yes.
I think that we are not about, completely destroying obstetrical care necessarily, although I think that the entire framework from its inception is problematic.
Yeah.
I think that there are some tools that have been cultivated, maybe stolen actually, but perhaps perfected or refined as well, and that are useful and that we sometimes need to lean into.
Yeah.
And we've also experienced frameworks where we've been able to do that in ways that were respectful and preserve the dignity of the people involved, and then in that case, it's actually medicine, right? That's healing.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily feel like the eradication of all of that is necessary for us to get where we're trying to go in the Afro-Future. But I do think that if we look at even the stats, right, the World Health Organization's been saying for so many decades that 15% is that number, right? And that's our metric as well. When we look at hospitals that boast 30%, 60% C-section rates, we know we're way out of line. World Health Organization says maybe up to 15% of interventive births. It's not necessarily just C-section, right? All the interventive stuff. So I think that we are in a space where we can actually work with these professionals and lean into their expertise in a way that allows for mutual exchange.
Yeah.
They are going to see us, midwives, as the birth keepers, those who hold the most wisdom and knowledge on a certain practice, a certain field. And then we can, invite them to consult with us as specialists when that's necessary. Yeah. I just feel like restoring that type of balance will create a culture that approaches birth differently to begin with.
Absolutely.
So then what that also looks like to me is we spoke with Mama Saran last night and got some insight into the way that she's been managing her practice for 40 years now. Some of the things were just so simple and so resonant and obviously carried from before and will completely move into the future. A hub. Just like you were talking about, that does more than just prenatal care, that may have someone birthing in the back, who is not disturbed by foot traffic, but maybe also is reassured by the murmurs of her community unfolding around her, normalizing the fact that she's having this wild experience, and we know, and it's cool, nobody's tripping. That's what we want you to be able to do in that safe space. So this hub maybe has a space for birthing in the back, but there's also stuff that is just community exchange. There might be little, festivals for the children. There's an exchange closet with maternity clothes that you gently use and we're glad to borrow and brought back and hope somebody else enjoys them. It has kids' supplies. She mentioned a bunch of things that they were able to do. I could imagine there being food growing and an abundant, garden space that people both come and contribute to and also reap from when their time comes. Overflow is cooked up in the kitchen for the birthing families. These are things that we've learned and we've had precedent for in our foremothers, but I think that our social structures have corroded, so we haven't really been able to see these spaces flourish the way that they could if they were treated as an epicenter of community.
Exactly.
Everyone pays in, everyone reaps reward.
Exactly.
And in the process, everyone also understands their sort of place in the constellation, and everyone feels at home.
Yep. I did a chat on Monday about sustainable birth work. And hearing you talk right now, and I just keep getting these visuals as you're talking. And I'm like, okay, yeah, and that's also a thing about sustainable birth work, is that the midwife cannot sustain herself. We should not be, just like the mother should not sustain herself when she is birthing, when she is postpartum. It's like we're constantly in that liminal space of that being in that care position requires to be cared for.
Right.
Right. So when you talk about like
that.
If I'm at something, while this is our home, it's our compound, and say we both have our family homes, and there's like all this land, and there's like food growing, and there's like animals, like the chickens and, you know, the goats. And I can't be thinking about, did the chickens
get fed
today? Do they have enough water?
Did they collect
the eggs this morning? Did somebody, you know, milk the cows? It has to be this full communal thread where we're pouring into this, and then we know we also receive. And maybe I received already and we're done having children in our family, or maybe I know that one day I will receive and I haven't had a child yet, but we're all committed to keeping this going because for all of our holistic well-being. I think that is something that I'm very curious about what that looks like, right? Like, what if there is no land? What if there are no chickens? What if there is no, you know, physical building? What does the hub look like still? Can we still bring that wisdom to our practice and to our life, to our community? And I do think that is possible. I think that even right now I'm wondering, what am I doing before I have the land? I don't have the land right now. What am I doing right now to cultivate that? Where I'm allowing myself to be held and be poured into, so therefore I can go ahead and pour in, right? And I think that's the part of the position of midwife as authority. It's not authority as in hierarchy, it's authority as importance. Essential, like this is an essential person in our network, of our community.
Right.
Like we need to have this person thriving because therefore we're all thriving when she's thriving.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think that this is something that we can also see in antiquity that we get to mold for its future incarnation. You know, no one has told me this, but I have heard in a number of spaces that midwives, we know midwives came over in the transatlantic slave trade, right? And we know that they were important parts of the community, called upon from all folks in society. But what we don't hear documented is that I imagine that they also received preferential treatment. I don't like that word, but you get where I'm going with that. From both their, you know, fellow enslaved people and, you know, Massanem, because their skills were valued. And so that was not necessarily like anything that felt splabbed out, but they probably weren't missing rations if things were getting low.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? They probably were given a little bit of leeway to cultivate the herbs that they needed. Even though nobody quite knew what they was up to, it was like, well, she's doing her thing. Let's not question that.
Well, because she was very valuable, and you know, we took care of everyone.
Right.
We took care of it. They couldn't believe how, even with all the conditions we were going through, I can imagine, you know, say like the Afro past, of like even how they discovered that she was a midwife. I wondered that. How do they know she was a midwife?
I wondered that too. I was
like,
trying to picture the setting. We're all here. They didn't even humanize us. Nobody speaks the same language.
That part.
And she's asserting herself. Because, and even that, like the part that I love about that is the indomitable spirit of the midwife. Here she is in this absolutely fucked up situation, and there's probably someone who she wants to aid who maybe there's a language barrier there. But through her touch and her demeanor and her knowledge, she's able to communicate that she has something to offer that can aid this person. And the fact that she chooses to do that in those set of circumstances. So, you know, this is the Sankofa piece, because I often get to this when we're talking about the Afro-Future, like, why are you talking about the past so much? But there are pieces to really glean, and I think that when we do that, we honor those ancestors, and then they really help to lubricate the passage into the future. That channel has been set for us already. And I just want to make sure we don't forget some of the gifts.
Exactly. And we see that right now in our own lives. You know, I have been many places where I had no intention to lead with the midwife. And here I am in the middle of the club giving someone advice around, you know, how to know if they're ovulating or not.
Exactly.
Like, you know,
contraceptive care.
Right. You know, it's like, oh, shoot. Which is absolutely real, what you're saying. It's like just that spirit of the midwife just persists no matter what. And I also think about just globally right now in the present, when there is so much devastation and there is so much, you know, opportunity for anyone to just be focused on their own well-being. Right now, I must center myself. Yes, still we're seeing in the middle of war and genocide, the most devastating of experiences, starvation and just all kinds of different things, political unrest. that the midwife is still showing up for her community. And that's why we must reinstate her. That's why. And not because she's like a martyr, but because, again, like she's essential. She's essential. And there's no way for us to compensate her through a financial exchange. It's actually not, it's not compensation, because what we do goes so much deeper and beyond that. And I'm going to be there no matter what.
Yes. And so this is something that has me contemplating technologies of the past that I think maybe we've overlooked, things that we haven't understood it as technology. I'm talking about ritual and ceremony.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, for instance, the way that we have in the past had ceremony around honoring the mother, and how the midwife is a symbolic mother of the community, right?
Yeah.
So even though we might make offerings to a shrine around the mother, the midwife is able to collect those things to actually sustain herself in a physical, very practical way.
And reciprocate them back.
And reciprocate them back to the community. So this idea of it being isolated or hierarchical on a pedestal, I think, is also a more capitalistic sort of influenced thought process.
Yeah.
But within the continuity of community, it's kind of like nourishing this battery, like or like the, what is it called, the indistinguishable flame, or the flame that you can't put out.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And the idea of keeping it fed so that it will continue to go for the benefit of everyone, not necessarily the individual. So in some ways we're familiar already with pouring into things as a piece of a whole. You know, not necessarily a transactional pouring into, but like a tribute that that I know I will benefit from in a grander sense of things, maybe even if it's not a direct benefit.
Absolutely.
And I think that we understand how to hold people in that in our community in those ways.
Yeah.
If you look at modern celebrity culture, that ain't a thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, people have no problem buying somebody's merch and supporting their entire empire, even though it doesn't benefit them as an individual directly, except for maybe they can show their proximity to that thing.
But pour into an essential piece of the community puzzle.
Yes. We don't understand that yet.
We don't understand that anymore.
Right.
And we haven't remembered it yet.
Yes,
you know, like,
that's the word.
We forgot. I feel like we did know, we forgot. Now we're in the space of, okay, we need to remember when we came, me and Pakistani came to Hawaii in 2017. That was the name of our series, was Remembering.
Yes, that's right.
And that's what inspired it, is because I was sitting, I was like, we're not learning these things. We are remembering these things.
Absolutely.
Because we've always had them. I think to honor that, we've always had them, and they're whole and they're intact. And right now we are collecting back the pieces of the puzzle for this mosaic. It's going to be mosaic now. It's not going to be, whole as it was. It's going to be different. What we're going to use to bind it together, to fuse it together, to hold it, to display it, it's going to look different. You're going to go see the cracks, but what do they say? The cracks is where the light shines through, right?
Yes, and I think that we are actually those pieces.
Exactly.
Not just you and I, but even those of you who are interested enough to listen to this. Yeah. We're the golden threads that are combining those things. And we're bringing things from different ancestral pathways.
Exactly.
Even. You're bringing a different soup than I might have. It has different nutritive properties that are also really nourishing. And we can combine and make this, not one gumbo, but like a whole menu of different meals. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so I think that it is important. And I want to highlight that because I think that for those of you who are listening, there will also be a process of sacred remembering, and I want you to just lean into it. Yeah. I know in my experience, I've had insights. I can't tell you where they came from. Exactly. I don't know how I knew. I just remembered. It just was one day a part of me and felt natural. Yep. And I want to encourage y'all who are receiving those gifts as well to just lean into it. Yep. You don't have to question it. Just bring it to the altar, baby. You know what I'm saying?
That's so real. That's so real. Something that I'm curious about as well is with birthing the Afro-Future, I'm very curious about, one of my dear friends and mentors, Rachel Zaskal, who is executive director of Mother Health International, she has been reminding me of this. Not that I did not know it, but she's highlighting a point that I haven't been really focused on, and she's saying that the midwifery model of care is not only for midwives. You don't have to be a midwife to practice and work within the paradigm and have a praxis of the midwifery model of care.
Agreed.
Right? Like, you could be any type of care provider within the perinatal spectrum. I'm like, wow, that's so real. And I'm saying that because, to me, in the Afro-Future, we don't just have midwives that we can trust. Right now we're focused on the midwife, what the midwife looks like, in, the Afro-Future, what she looked like. But also within that, we can reach in for different levels of care that we may need and still trust that is in alignment with that midwifery model of care. So if I do need to go to a perinatalogist, I'm not putting up my armor. I just had a conversation with a client the other day, and I'm literally putting armor on her. Okay, here's your chest plate.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, right? Like literally
Talk
having to
about
armor her down to protect her as a Black woman, having to she now needs a different level of care that's undeniable and that is absolutely necessary and needed.
Not to mention she needs a physical bodyguard, AKA a doula.
Exactly. So I'm also preparing her husband,
Right.
and then now her sister-in-law's over there. Okay, prepare the sister-in-law. Like, please go in there with her. Do not make sure that she's not going alone. I'm on the phone. What do you need? You can FaceTime me. You can keep me on the phone. They don't have to even know I'm on the phone. Put me in your AirPod. I'm literally figuring out all these different strategies just to get information that she needs for the health of her and her baby. Like, that's ridiculous. I feel like in the Afro-Future, that doesn't exist for us. That we can go into, reach in for different levels of care, and our full humanity is there, not just our skin meat coat. Our full humanity, not their prejudices. Our full humanity is present. They see us as this is a mother and this is a baby. I have insight and I have tools. Let me use that to support them and get information that they need to make the choices that they need to feel however they want to feel, whatever it is. You want to feel held, you want to feel seen, you want to feel witnessed, all of it. That I'm just the vehicle to support in that. I'm just a vessel to just transmute this information. I would love to see that in the next 2 generations.
I would love to see that as well. I would love to see that, and I would love for the midwifery model of care to inspire a reconfiguration of society altogether, to be honest.
Yes.
When I was pregnant for the first time, I started learning, as many first-time moms do, about all the things that you can and can't eat during pregnancy.
Yeah.
My views on those lists have shifted drastically in the last 20 years, but that first time around, you're paying attention to that. And I remember thinking, at the culmination of that experience, if these things are so harmful during pregnancy, why am I eating them at all? Like, why am I okay with putting these things in my body when I'm not pregnant?
Yeah.
And so it definitely influenced my diet moving forward.
Yeah.
I can also remember as a young woman being edged out of the nest, my mother telling me, giving me some tools to navigate decision making. And she was like, I just want you to remember, all of your eggs are already inside of you, and whatever choices you make affect you and your children. So have fun. If it feels good and harms no one, feel free to do it. But just keep in mind that those are little someones potentially. And so we're concerned about harm all around.
Wow.
And those are thoughts that really shifted my framework. And so I actually think that the medical paradigm, but really just the care paradigm, health itself could really benefit from a paradigm shift in that way as well.
Yeah.
What if we treated people as though we wanted to protect their potential?
Yeah.
And that's not to necessarily favor people who choose to procreate, because I know there are plenty of people out there who know that they don't want children.
Yeah.
But if we have remodeled the healthcare system to really preserve and protect people's capacities to procreate, then the people who choose not to are still benefiting from a paradigm that treats care holistically.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important.
Yeah.
I think that that would also create, in my vision of this Afro-Future, a space where the midwife is a consulted part of the team.
Yeah.
Right now, everything seems so completely siloed in healthcare. You can have a chronic illness and have a completely separate specialist for that who doesn't ever talk to your OB or any of your other care providers.
Have no way to integrate and connect with them and have no desire.
Didn't see the chart, doesn't know what's up. You have to mention it to them. And they also won't necessarily inquire because it's they're like, it's none of my business. And so an idea where care providers can really be a concert of providers, a symphony of people that are really working to get you in your optimum health space continuously would also look like different choices for the foods that we eat, different choices that we make for how we want to live in society. I think that would extend to environmental concerns even.
I know this is why it's so radical.
Right. I mean, how would we tolerate toxins in the air when we know we have pregnant people breathing this in,
Yeah.
gestating life for that's going to move into the
new little
future.
ones, little humans.
New little ones,
Yeah.
elders who
Yes.
deserve reverence for their lung
Yes.
capacity. Like, I just think that if we restore a concept about life being precious and remove it from the dogma of religion that tried to sort of twist that into an oppressive way, but instead just really revere this concept that life is inherently precious, it would totally transform society.
It would. And this is why this is so radical, the gesture, you know? Like when we focus on optimizing the way that we are caring for, allowing potentially pregnant people and postpartum people, little humans, to be in society with us, it just transforms everything. Like everything is transformed. Even think about how is a restaurant, you know, built.
That part.
You know, like why is there no area for little people to wiggle their bodies? Like they don't want to sit here. So our conclusion now is put them in front of a screen.
Right.
We walk into a restaurant, all the children are like this.
Well, and now the restaurants have, if you notice, they've added screens. It's a lot easier to add a screen for every table than it is to build some space or just reserve some space for them. Ridiculous. I can guarantee you it's not more expensive to make
I don't think it's more expensive. And also how much, the idea of like a kiddie menu, how wasteful that is. The children aren't even eating that stuff. Most of the children are just, you know, I'm pretty sure if we took all the kiddie menu, you know, plates, and we looked at them like, they're like mostly wasting the food. Why not just have an area where they just have like a little like grazing bar where they can just pick as they choose and they have some people there to watch them. And, you know, I've seen in other countries where they've totally been able to do it. So I know it's not a resource thing.
No, it's not. And then would also allow them to partake from the foods that their family is consuming anyway, which is a much more natural way for them to approach that. And then, pick and choose. I think they should even just scale the menu. Like you can have a very small portion, a tasting plate, or the full shebang.
I saw one restaurant called it the girlfriend portion. And it's like, no, I don't want anything, babe. And you go, let me get chicken wings. You know, like, but it was like one wing, a few fries, and it was like the girlfriend portion. I thought that was so funny. I'm totally that person.
Definitely me too.
And my mom is classic. She doesn't order anything. She's like, what are you guys getting? What are you getting? Everybody on the table. And then she goes, I'm playing this little thing. And then she's asking all of us for food. Like, you know, it's like.
Stone soup.
Yes, stone soup, exactly. I think something else with the Afro-Future that came up for me too is thinking about about values. We mentioned values, right? And Black women have created a economic, maybe I'm off, don't quote me. Okay. But I think is though, we have an economy that we created within ourselves that's multi-trillion dollars, that's centered around the purchasing and using of beauty-related products.
I was just about to say hair alone when you hit that trillion.
Yeah, I think hair alone is a trillion, but I think they put under beauty. Maybe it's not just hair, maybe it's hair and makeup. But I know like beauty for sure. It's a multi-trillion dollar economy that we've created on our own, Black women.
Yes.
Right?
Shout out to CJ Walker.
Right. But, so therefore I'm not convinced that the issue at hand is that we don't have enough resource to spread, back to that hub, to have that reciprocal energy flowing through to make sure all of our needs are met. I don't believe that's the issue. The issue is values. We do not value the midwife. We don't know who she is anymore. We don't remember her because she's been eradicated.
Yes.
And she's been hidden. What happens to so many of us who are birth workers, you know, to be a birth worker is a calling. It is a calling to be a midwife, to set the feet of women. It's a calling.
For sure.
And I believe that this understanding, perspective, and insights that we have can only be transmitted through DNA. Which is why what happens is that it's not a coincidence, y'all. I'm called to be a doula. You take the doula training, you go to your family, you start talking about it, and you go, oh, Auntie so-and-so was a midwife.
My great-grandmother, I just learned, was a midwife. You hear that story so often.
All the time. And I'm saying that because she's been hidden in the closet, the midwife. We no longer understand and know that she's essential, right? And it's changed the whole texture of our community. So much of what we're experiencing right now is because we don't have the midwife at the center anymore. She's not welcoming us all in and ushering us all out anymore. I feel like in so many ways, how we mentioned how the society will be so different in these different ways, removing the midwife changes and dismantles and unravels and disorients so many aspects of the society. So I think also in the Afro-Future, the values reinstated of why I shouldn't just have this big old chair at my baby shower that costs $1,200. I'll never forget a client told me that. The chair alone, Piper, that throne chair.
The photos, girl.
The maternity shoot, the gender reveal.
Please, if we can get rid of one thing, can we start with the dang gender reveal? What a waste. I'm sorry,
Give it
guys.
to your midwife.
I am
Jeez.
judging. Because that is the
It's
single
such a
most
waste.
ridiculous. I'm not here to counter y'all's joy. I love joy. But man.
More joyful to have a mother blessing with your midwife.
Hello?
And more actual, that's arbitrary joy. This is like actual, factual, like laying down some
tangible
seeds, tangible
joy that grows and it's fruitful.
Purposeful, fruitful,
Yeah.
right? So I think that also in the Afro-Future, the value has shifted. My granddaughter is going to know the importance of a midwife, and she's going to know why she needs to be either saving before or setting money aside or having the flow or talking to the family or whatever. And I hope that the family that I birthed, right, that's coming through me right now, also understands. So that all the uncles and aunties and cousins, everybody responds with enthusiasm to support and pour into this process so she can have the midwife.
So I definitely agree with that. And I think that you're right, it is the value thing. But I think that there's another component, which is trust. And that comes through because what's happening for me visually listening to you talk is remembering the midwife who has been there. There has been a thread.
Yeah.
We didn't completely remove the midwife.
Yeah.
We subjugated her.
Yes.
So now instead of being a center of the community that people can recognize and greet in the street and pour into, she becomes the closeted witch doctor.
Yeah.
The lady who might know the thing if you're really in a tight spot.
Yeah.
And so there's almost like a pejorative happening around her, right? Why did you need to talk? I saw you talking to so-and-so after church. Why did you need to talk to her for so long? We know what people go to her for. Do you know what I'm saying? And it became this thing where the keeper of the wisdom was going to keep the wisdom for the community. And there was always an auntie, grandmother, somebody who knew who to talk to.
Yeah.
Who knew who to talk to and how to get that information.
Yeah.
But it was no longer something that we were able to celebrate.
Maybe put it on the black and not the bra. So then when you whip it out.
Actually, I think the black is a little flimsier.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, we would, there became a stigma is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, stigmatized. That is true.
And talking to the midwife.
Yeah. And that is real, Piper. I guess I'm also imagining how a lot of our families, like, it's not like our mothers were our mother generation. Like we had an auntie or a cousin who was a midwife. It's usually like a grandma, great-grandma, great-great-grandma. So I was mentioning like she's been forgotten.
Totally. And I don't think that those women were able to really practice midwifery, but they served that position in the community of somebody who knew a little something extra.
I was going to say, but maybe that's also a misnomer. Because they didn't call her a midwife does not mean she was not a midwife. She didn't hold those skills, and she wasn't like that. She's keeping even the crumbs to pass to the next generation. Maybe she doesn't have the full cake, right? But then she does have a little bit of the frosting, and then and they got to us. We're like, okay, and we realized, wow, this was cake. Right. And then we're building, and we're like, okay, we're tasting it, and we're like, it's definitely brown sugar, not just white sugar. Right. Okay, it definitely has some lemon. Is that a little bit of lemons? That's okay. Right.
And then your girlfriend had some cake too, maybe a different crumb, and she was like, well, this is what I got. What if you put some of that frosting on here? Okay,
the vanilla frosting with the lemon cake, and maybe it was opposite for our grandma, but the cake, we're trying to build and reconstruct it from the like going the reverse,
Totally, like Jurassic Parking.
Yes. Jurassic Parking midwifery.
But the reason that I mention that is because the stigma is something that we have to contend with moving forward. I think that if we're going to see the restoration of the midwife's position in the community, we have to do something with that guilt and the shame and the stigmatization that happened around her insight. Because I think that sometimes that's what also influences people. That's still some of the shadow that the entire midwifery field is working around. That it's like, the hospital metric has become the pinnacle. Yep. And so there is already just a little bit of shade associated with midwifery. Either that or it's trendy. Yeah. You know what I mean? But there's not a lot of space for it to just be messy and regular, schmegular part of life.
I know, because my great-great-grandma, who was a midwife, it was just regular, schmegular. I don't think she went to that many births. Okay. In fact, I asked my great-grandma, I recorded it, actually. I'll love to show you one day. So I asked my great grandma about her birth stories, right? And that was one. Then the second follow up, I was asking her, I think about her mother, maybe her mother in some kind of way. It came up where she's mentioning her birth story of her first baby. And she's like, yeah, I was in the baseball field, or like out in the field playing baseball with my cousins and my siblings. There's a bunch of them. I'm thinking like compound living, because she mentions like the siblings and the cousins kind of like meeting in the middle kind of thing, you know? And she was 16 years old, her first pregnancy. And she was full term. She that day she learned. She started feeling something. She said it wasn't pain. She had this really strong, undeniable feeling though. And she starts booking it off the field. Like think about, you know, your bases. Imagine she's like in third base. She's all like just running. Don't say anything. Everybody's probably like, what? What is she doing? Why is Susie running back home? Right. And she said she's just running full throttle, 9 months pregnant, booking it.
I'm trying to picture this baseball game.
I know.
pregnant
I know.
lady.
I thought it was so cute that she was playing baseball.
I love that with her family.
I know, but also showing like, just at the time, just like where she was in her life, just like a young girl.
For sure.
And she comes home. She comes to the home. She's like, "Mama, like I'm feeling something." And Mom was like, "Oh, maybe the baby's coming." And I don't know how her mom assessed that the baby definitely was coming, but she was like, "Okay, yeah, baby's coming." And then, she lays down, baby comes out, and she said the placenta was kind of sticky. So her mom gave the doctor, I want to say some bread, but the doctor came through and helped them birth the placenta. And then he left.
Yes.
So again, when you say looking at the past for the Afro-Future, I think of that. Where my grandma is like, I'm like, who's the doctor? She was like, oh, he was just the doctor. Like to her, it was just so matter of fact. Like the interview was funny because you could tell I'm reaching for something so deep, so profound. And she's just like, that was it. How was the birth? Cool. Regular, schmegular. Like this was simple, but guess what? She said, Sumayyah, don't wait too long to have babies. And when you do, when you feel that pain come behind your butt, she said, just breathe and push. And I'll never forget she told me that. And at the time, I was already a midwife, so I already had context. I could imagine that landing on like pre-midwife ears. But it was my time, sure enough. When I felt that sensation, just tapping on the shoulder. Tapping the shoulder, and I got up. It was not pain that woke me up. It's like she was saying, she was trying to explain to me, she was like, it wasn't pain. She said, I never felt pain in my labors. It wasn't pain. It just was a knowing. Yes. She said, you're going to know when your baby coming. And she said, all of them was like that. It was never pain that was told me that I was in labor. My baby's about to be in my arms. It was just a knowing. And I remember having that moment in my labor, my first experience, and being like, this is what Granny was telling me. Oh my God. I have no idea. To this day, I cannot put it. It's like her. I cannot put it into words. That's amazing. I just got up and I said, I'm in labor. That's amazing. And I sure enough was. And when I felt that sensation come on through my butt, I just breathed and I released. Yes. I didn't push because I was like, Granny, it's not good. Public floor. I'm not going to push, but I will release, but I released, and that sensation. She was saying, like, don't be scared of it. Yes. She was telling me, like, don't be scared of it.
And so to me, this conditioning, this is something that you and I have shared because we both came to this craft fairly early in our lives, and we both had foremothers who gave us a very regular perception of what it might look like. I don't think either of us really were put upon with negative emergency stories that like triggered our whole nervous system to be fearful. But a lot of people do. A lot of people have those buttons configured in a certain way that birth from the beginning of the first time they were ever familiar with the concept was laced with fear and pain. And I believe that for a lot of people who are doing the transmuting of those stories, the fear and the pain hurts in the dignity department and hurts in the lack of compassion department, more so maybe than even physically. Wow. I feel that I'm just intuiting that based on having viewed a lot of women go through labor, because I feel as though there is a fork in the road for a lot of people, and suffering is one of the paths. And not a lot of people know that you have that there's a fork, and that you can go down a different path. And if your grandmama and them have told you to look for the other path,
Wow.
you can choose to walk down it. But otherwise,
Like
there's billboards and there's lighting and stuff on the suffering highway. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes folks miss that little
signs this way.
Yeah.
It's like this little bushel. You have to move
Gotta move some undergrowth.
Yes.
Yeah,
and then you're like, and you open. It's like, whoa! It's a whole new world over there.
So to take the road metaphor, the reason why we're moving that underbrush out the way is because it's not as traveled.
Yeah.
But the more we talk about it and the more that we build up this space and pave that road.
The queen of analogies. You. That was so beautiful to just like, I'm just like, even like the lighting and as he used on the other road is bright and it's abrasive and right. And then it's like already like, thinking about the physiology of birth and the psyche of the, laboring brain, it's like that's already causing more feedback for pain.
Exactly.
Like,
this is what I mean. It's inundating you with input that doesn't allow you to integrate what's already coming.
It's loud and distracting. You can't listen. Like that inner voice is so persistent and it's present, but it's fragile and it's soft. Mm-hmm. It's intentional, it's correct, it's spot on, but you can easily miss it. It can get drowned out real easy.
Right.
Right? And this is something that I also see in the Afro-Future where there's an environment for us to be in our wanting to be pregnant, exploring that, our preconception, our trying to conceive, our pregnancy, our birthing process, and postpartum that allows where the outside noise is never louder than the inside.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's it right there. That little soundbite is the perfect description of the Afro-Future for birth. Because I really believe that our bodies have so much wisdom. And one thing we are conditioned to do is respond to pain.
Yeah.
And so if you can't hear me when I'm just nudging you and just trying to guide you to create some space to go deeper within, then when I shout in pain, I know you're gonna respond, And so like just thinking about the physical aspects of moving through labor, if you can hear your intuition telling you to sway and dip and crouch down, you don't really have to feel as much intensity that translates into pain.
And you find that other road.
On
your own.
You just stumble onto it.
You stumbled onto it.
You stumble on the path.
Yep.
But otherwise, sometimes when you're restricted in your motion or you're restricted by your fear, then pain is what really comes through all that chatter.
Driving the entire experience.
So in the Afro-Future, I don't necessarily want us to value birth in the way that I hear people doing now.
You go into that the other day when we were talking. Which talk was that? We have so many sessions now.
I think it was the sovereign birth.
The sovereign birth session. I love that perspective shift that you invited me into as well. When you're talking about the valuing of birth.
Yeah, I really. That's something that bothers me because I think that it harms women psychologically. Yeah. To imagine that there's some sort of merit system based on how you birth. Well, I think that so we have free birth has entered the chat now, right? We all understand.
Dun, 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 dun.
Bam! And we understand that like people value that. She really is. I'm holding this baby. I don't want to drop her, but that's what it is. For real, she came in and did a little twirl around.
Dip.
She came out bodacious like that. Yeah. And I think that people assumed that it was the pinnacle. Mm-hmm. We've decided the mainstream is absolutely medicated epidural birth. We know that at least 80% of women are doing it that way. Yeah. And there's no shame, no shade. You know what I'm saying? But then I think maybe it's a masculine driven, maybe it's a patriarchal or capitalistic system. We heard some people who just don't medicate. Same environment, but no epidural. Well, now we're going to give her an extra badge. Yeah. Oh, you did that with no medication. You know, women carry that badge of pride, and I'm not here to take it from you, ladies. I mean, you did that. Yeah. And then we have out-of-hospital birth. So now home birth is even more this idea, oh my God, you didn't even go to the hospital? That's so crazy. What would you do?
So brave.
You didn't even have the option of pain medication. Right. You know what I mean? And so that becomes a big thing. Yeah. And then free birth is just taking it that much further. You were home and had no help is the idea. So I think that people have sort of even radicalized that concept, which is what we brought up in the sovereign birth conversation, because in free birth, this idea of being able to do it in this rugged, radically individualistic way is what we reward with the highest reverence, right? Yeah. Like this is the epitome of birthing.
The most radical, the most undisturbed.
Yes, and I understand how those things how those concepts emerged from the birth paradigm that we're in now, because they are really reflective of harm that people have experienced. All of those little things that we're stripping away are things that have harmed people. So this idea of it being better without it comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I just don't think that it's fair to create this system that would then shame somebody or allow them space to feel shame for not having reached this pinnacle that we project. And also, I think that that's taking us off track. It's really just a misinterpretation of those of trying to heal.
Sure.
It's a distraction trying to heal from this paradigm.
Yes.
Because really, the epitome of birth should be, look, here I go. We shouldn't have a hierarchy, but this is what it should be, is just feeling sovereign, feeling empowered, feeling held, however that looks
feeling
for you.
witness.
Right, I forgot to even bring up belly birth, right?
That's also the big one, yes, belly birth.
Right, then we put that even below, right? Then it becomes like these two ends of the extreme.
Yes.
The free birth on one end and belly birth on the other end.
So what happens if you modulate through, so if you're aiming for this pinnacle that's been placed, of free birth, and you modulate all the way down to the belly birth, what does that leave
the birthing person with? They're wrecked psychologically, and now they're just beginning their path of mothering and postpartum.
They're feeling so defeated. They're feeling absolutely less than.
Absolutely.
Right? And I had to explore this with it myself when I was preparing for my own birth.
Okay.
My first one.
Talk about it.
In the sense of, I had to explore what parts of me that I plan to have a sovereign home birth. So I was like, okay, what parts of me are wanting this? What parts of me are absolutely not wanting other ways that birth can happen? What would it look like for me to go into the hospital? What does that mean? Do I feel like I failed? Do I feel like I'm like inherently stepping into harm? Do I feel guilty? Do I feel shame? Do I not tell that part of the story all the way? Right? All that. And we see this often within the free birth space, where people will go into the hospital for care, especially when the leaders of the voice leaders are going to the hospital during their free birth, and then go on their free birth. Right. And I think that's okay. Why? Because if you felt sovereign, if you felt empowered, and that was the tool you needed to get your baby into your arms, who am I to judge and say otherwise? And I had to sit there with myself. Because I realized that all that was actually a projection.
Totally.
Midwife.
Totally.
Midwife, right? Like I'm supposed to be like the epitome of empowering women. Here I am noticing these undercurrents of how I could be judging.
Yes.
And I wanted to dissolve that.
Yes.
I'm committed to just trying to be better.
Yeah, I completely
want to
agree.
be better.
That was something that came up on our preparation journey as well.
Yeah.
We have had a number of sovereign births, and for me, that part of the conversation was around, who am I doing this for?
I love when you say a number.
Just a few and a couple, and then a few more.
You're so cute. You're so cute.
But it really came down to like, who am I doing this for? What are the optics, you know? Because you get swept up into this whole concept of free birthing. Now we have all this different nomenclature.
Yes.
I think when I first started, it was unassisted birth.
Right.
Which was very clear, and it was what it was.
Why they call it? Why is it UC? What's the C?
Childbirth. Unassisted childbirth.
Oh, I've never got that in these last 20 years, Piper, I'm not gonna lie. I can never figure out, why are we calling it UC? I get the U. I don't see a C nowhere in sight. I'm thinking of unassisted birth. So I guess the full word is childbirth, okay.
Well, because wild pregnancies used to be called UP, unassisted prenatal. So it was UPUC. It was like a UP/UC.
Yeah, you're actually right. I totally remember all the blogs, all the
that was what it was, UPUC. So those were wild pregnancies and free births back in the day, right?
Yep.
And I think that was a more accurate term for what people in the free birth movement have described as being their ultimate birth, right? It's really just about it being unassisted.
Yeah.
Because free, if you're free, you know what I mean? You get to decide what it looks like.
You get to decide.
And if you're sovereign, same thing.
Yeah.
Sovereign just means that you are centering your intuition and your knowing.
You're knowing,
and are not impeded from doing so in your birth process. And I like those terms better, even though my definition of that has been unassisted birthing.
Okay.
I do that because I feel sovereign in that space. And I really did have to interrogate, who are we doing this for? You know, is my ego going to be impacted if I ask for help? Because I don't want to be doing it for that reason. And what if I do feel like I need help? What will that look like?
Yeah.
and what makes me decide when I need to call in assistance.
Yeah.
So for me, I spoke a little bit about this in our sovereign birthing chat. I'm really interested in my newborn and what their initial experiences will be on this planet. So that is what really motivates me.
It's a big motivation.
Having a sovereign experience.
But I'm guessing also you're interested about yourself too.
I care about myself too.
But you feel you have more resiliency to like, if I needed the surgery, if I needed the medication, I feel I'm more resilient. I have the logic, I can make sense of it. Right. I have the insight.
And I would be walking into it with my eyes wide open because I would be making a sovereign choice to engage that. I know I can do it without that. So if I find myself in need of it, I'm choosing that. I also feel like I have some privilege. I know these spaces now. We've been working in here for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I could navigate that system to a positive outcome for myself. But do I want to? Do you know what I would have to pull out of myself in labor to do that? Like I know that I would have to be in a conscious space, in a defensive posture, noticing every little thing, articulating myself, efficiently.
Can I be honest?
What?
I can't even imagine myself giving birth in the hospital.
I can't either. I don't want to have to do any of those things.
I can't even fathom it. And I have to sit with that. Because if I need to go to the hospital, I need to fucking imagine something. Because
can you see yourself?
I used to joke my wife, just give me a C-section delivery if I need a C-section. But I just, like that defensive posture, I'm like, wow, knowing just like how I experienced birth and imagining having to be and have such armor on.
This is what I'm saying.
I'm like, whoa, that just feels so contradictory. And that's why in the Afro-Future, we don't have to bring that armor.
Right, and so then we can navigate these paradigms with, first of all, the paradigms look a lot different, but we can navigate our care from a care-forward perspective.
Care-forward.
That's the point.
There we go.
Because me going in, if I were to choose to go into the hospital, it's not about my ego and other people.
It's simply care.
But it's really about the type of care that I know what to expect, even in the best case scenarios.
Exactly.
And so, I think that birthing in an Afro-Future, we remove those types of harm so that people can actually get to the care. And then the choices that they are willing to make look a lot different. And there's still space for a spectrum of different choices.
And it should always be. It should always be a spectrum of choices. It's not this is the way. I think that's something that's really, really harmful, is that you're basically critiquing this system that says this is the way.
Right.
Anything else outside, like the doctor, you say I'm having home birth, they're just totally bashing.
Totally.
Or dropping from care.
Yes, divorcing you, firing you, being a client.
Restricting you from resources, right? Like giving ultimatums, things like that. But here you are doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Doing the same thing. We see it so often in these progressive birth movements, where you're literally just saying, I want that power they have.
Dogma.
It's dogma. You actually don't care about the empowerment.
Right.
You care about the power that's perceivably obtained from being in that positionality.
People get high on it, I swear.
Yes.
I'm not.
They may not start off like that. That's also the thing. They may not. They may have really actually been passionate like we are.
That's what I'm
maybe
saying.
I'll be a fucking cult leader one day.
I'm laughing because she really might do it.
No, I would not. Back in the day, someone used to be so down. Now look at her ass. It's that power. I don't know if it's kind of good. I don't know, but you calling or not.
Let me touch you too.
I'm like, you want some pipe? Come on. So I definitely feel like, for me, my own choices are my own choices. And that's been interesting being a midwife, because I noticed in the prenatal setting, preparing for the birth, they'll ask me questions, of course, clients. What did you do? I hate that question.
Me too.
Because it makes me feel awkward, one.
Yes.
So I don't want to discount your inquiry. I know that you're just curious and you generally probably want to know, what did Sumayyah do? But I don't want to be I'm not trying to have any hierarchy in this relationship.
This is my point.
I am the example of what the decision should be made. What I did is what I did, right? And I look back at some things I did, I'm like, wow, interesting. You was kind of raw dog in that one, I'm like, I don't know if you want that, boo-boo. I did it, but I ain't gonna say necessarily.
I don't necessarily recommend it.
Right.
For everybody.
Right. I was taking that with no chaser. And I feel like we always are, though, in something. Yeah. You don't get to avoid that when you are a gestating body.
No.
You don't get to enjoy it. You don't get to avoid it. Everything comes with risk. Not everything has benefits, but everything comes with risk.
Absolutely.
Right? And even the things I'm highlighting the benefits of, and I'm not mentioning the risk, they're always present. They're always present.
Absolutely.
You know, so
that's one of the main tricks of the modern medical paradigm. I think has been to hide risk, to create this drastic risk aversity, and then portray themselves as being risk-free.
And then they do the most riskiest things, like an open body major surgery.
Right.
And it's like
with no recovery time.
With no recovery time. Yo, that's been blowing me. You know, I can't believe, I read something, I was like, this is it. There's no other surgery that happens where there's no recovery time.
PT, imagine you had that type of surgery any other place on your body. Not only would you have more recovery time in the hospital, but you'd be assigned weeks of PT and OT.
Weeks.
You know what I'm saying?
And possibly permanent disability.
Right? And yet we have this, people doing it
term,
several times in their life.
Several times having this major surgery. I have this one woman I follow on Instagram. She's had 7 C-sections.
Wow.
I have never seen her rest. And I was thinking about that. You know, you talk about, life in the postpartum bed. Or postpartum time. Get ready with me postpartum. Get ready with you postpartum. You're like 1 week postpartum. You're like, and then just to know as a content creator myself, like all the tripod and the angles and the putting on your mask. I'm like, whoa.
For real.
Day 7.
Can't even imagine.
I'm excited for my next experience. I'm totally going to do a series on life in the bed.
I love it. In the soup.
In the postpartum soup. I've actually did a little research and I'm looking like, who is life in the bed? No one's life in the bed, Piper.
Yeah. I love that concept, and I think you would knock it out of the park. I remember being in that space with you before and doing a lot of captures.
Yes.
And I want to say, I'm just going to offer you this reflection from your previous time. Live from the bed doesn't have to be live in that same time.
Exactly.
You can definitely do the captures and post them separately.
Yes.
Only because it's such a sacred time,
I know.
too.
And that's why we probably know those in the bed. We ain't posting it.
We talked so much, and we had so many ideas.
We were going to do this.
But
even for this one,
I'm in the bed, we're talking about it.
But the thing about being in the bed is not just physically being in the bed.
Right.
It's I'm literally allowing myself to down-regulate.
Exactly.
I don't want to think about posting. I don't want to think about capturing this moment.
And all the decisions. Like there's 25, which filter do I want to use? Which font do I want to put this in? What am I going to put for my caption? And those are the things that just pull you out of that space and pull you back into. And I think that the postpartum space, if we let it, is such a gradual reintegration into this realm, and you really are birthing the mother. I think that the birthing of the mother happens in a more gradual expanse in the postpartum than the birthing of the baby that happens like with a timestamp. Time of birth. But the mother is gradually integrated.
How long did it take you to fully, like, you're born as the mother?
I mean, I've just been reborn. I've been reborn so many times.
It's like every time you feel like you go through that reborn.
Definitely, because I'm reborn as a new mother of this person, so I'm downloading all these new keys to what I need to be their parent. But I'm also integrating being the mother of multiple children.
Exactly.
So that constellation has all shifted with the advancement of a new star. You know,
and they're all different.
And they're all different, and they're all at different places in their life, and also, what I don't hear people talking about enough is that there are also a number of relationships. You know, people think of like, I'm a mom. But like you're a mom, however many times you have children, and those are each individual relationships. And then the children have relationships too, one-on-one with each other that are also individual relationships. And so all of that is recalibrating postpartum, and I think that it comes in very subtle little waves. Somebody's frustration, someone's little meltdown, someone's feelings that they were trying not to let overflow, but they did. You know, those are opportunities that present postpartum. It doesn't all happen at once.
Exactly.
And so I strive to be in a space where I can really be present with those things as they come up. And if I'm distracted trying to fix the font for my post, I know myself will be like, just
look how you nudged her as a nurse, this example. She didn't make a sound. Barely. No. Did the mic catch that? Probably not. Barely. And yet but how you learn that is from being in that bed. So no wonder we have the outcomes of the postpartum, of breastfeeding, the mood disorders, all of it is a part of not being able to be in that bed.
And
so in the Afro-Future, a mother can be in that bed. The whole society supports a woman, a mother, a birthing person to be in the bed. Therefore, from your job, paperwork, how many clients do I have worrying about paperwork?
Oh my gosh, in the bed.
It frustrates me. This should have been taken care of when you were 20 weeks.
For real.
Like for real. If we know the baby is coming, at 20 weeks, If we also know that babies can possibly come early at 20 weeks, I feel like it should be done. Like the paperwork is solid, boom, stamped. Everything should be automated. They should be doing it for you. You should have automation.
For you.
Automation, ding, you get an email in your inbox. Everything's processed. We heard you had the baby. Congratulations.
For real.
That's it. Should we get a ding dong, and there's a midwife that comes to your door, or a postpartum care nurse comes to your door, and they're coming to care. And we see this in other countries,
Bring
in
you
France,
supplies.
in Netherlands.
Absolutely.
Were we talking together to someone that said that the postpartum care nurse was getting on her nerves? She came to her house.
Because she came so often.
Yes, and if you get pregnant and you go into the system, she calling, hey, congratulations, Sumayyah, you're pregnant again.
Yes.
They're pairing with the same person.
Right.
You know, the
Continuity
midwife.
of care.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's the Afro-Future.
That is the Afro-Future. And so, okay, a couple things came up. Yes to all of that. I think that continuity of people, we were also talking about people being self-conscious about how things look and getting caught up in the dogma of performing birth a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think that does happen because we don't have a lot of examples.
Yeah.
But in the Afro-Future, look, we got to catch this because we're about to
Catch
spill.
that milk. Catch the, you feel it.
Abundance.
Here
I feel it
come.
coming. Ah! Next time I'm going to let it squirt y'all on camera, but we're just getting to know each other right now. Just tune in a few more times. Don't worry.
That's
You
the
won't get
OF.
sprayed.
That's the OF. The same handle, all the things.
That's the subscription.
That's what we meant, all the things.
Oh, no, but I think that we haven't seen a lot of people giving birth.
Yeah.
So in the Afro-Future, we're also not removing birth from the village.
Right.
You will have walked with your auntie and your sister and your cousins through it. It's not so foreign, so it's allowed to also be regular, degular, schmegular, because it just happens all the time. It's not like she disappears into the hospital.
And that's why it was regular for us.
Right.
That's why.
Because it was just happening, and it wasn't something that I think shame was a piece.
Yeah.
Now we have this whole era of like hiding and confinement.
Yeah.
Where we're not, there's something shameful about the feminine condition or whatever kind of bullshit language they were using. And so that's part of the renaturing of it all. And then I think we also, when we're reclaiming, we often see a pendulum swing, right?
A little closer.
We often see a pendulum swing.
Yeah.
Right? Like things are good, are terrible now. And on the way to good, we're going to be doing all of this reclaiming of the pieces that we want. And sometimes we veer off into dogma where we start to shame all the ways that we were, right? I can't believe we was birthed in hospitals, like on our backs like that. I don't want us to do that either because again, we are cherishing the people at the center of this.
Right.
But if we are going to veer into that territory of deep critique where we are now, let the shame go to the institutions.
Yeah.
So this is going back to your point about the 20 weeks. Let us be like, what? She out the bed?
Yeah.
Who does she work for?
Yeah.
How are they gonna? How
Come
dare
back to
they
the
have her
office.
coming out the office? We
Like,
need to. You know what I mean?
what?
I can't fuck with that company anymore because that is just ridiculous. Has nothing to do with her. But the idea that someone would ask her to do that—that's where the shame belongs.
Yeah.
Why is she up at the grocery store? Where are her people? Nobody brought her some soup.
And also, why are there no systems that just automatically just make sure there's groceries there?
This is what I'm saying, Rappi.
No, for real. There's so much like resource that's just being like mishandled. Like we couldn't have a future where everybody's fridge is full, hands are on deck 24/7. We have a future for a whole year. There's other countries, y'all, out there besides the U.S. They have care for a year, 2 years.
Right. A year should be the bare minimum. Forget those 6 weeks. A year should be the real minimum.
And your job should never be threatened. You should get your 100% pay, no matter if you have 20 babies.
Let's pause here for just a second. Because
Like, I'll keep pushing them. I don't know, man. I'm like, get that first job when you about 22.
Okay.
You know, you get your little baby.
Got your
I ain't working 20 years.
Until you about 49.
Now I'm retiring.
Actually, that would be kind of amazing because you would still be contributing to society. And
You totally would.
And I know that countries that do preserve longer postpartum leave, it's because they've actually looked at child development.
Yeah.
That's really the root of that. And if you pay any attention to the miracles that are unfolding in these new people in that first year of life, how much they learn, how much they have to integrate with their muscles, I mean, physiologically, psychologically, all of these things. You would understand why it's important to protect, why you would want to prioritize that first year and them getting all of their needs met because they then go on to become the adults of society and have been optimally positioned to be whole, functioning
and look at those
adults.
societies.
And look at those, they're constantly topping the metrics
All
of
of it.
happiness, success,
All of it.
education, everything is
All
way,
of
way
it.
up, up, up.
Up, up, up.
And it begins, because peace on earth begins with birth,
It
right?
begins with birth. You know, Piper, we could talk until ever.
Yeah, and
I mean, I don't know the metro. I don't know the metro don't even exist.
way into the Afro-Future.
Way into the Afro-Future, okay? But we need to wrap up just for the sake of y'all's bandwidth. We don't want to oversaturate you, but this is an example of our podcast project with my favorite boo.
That's just some of our little things.
Just show them. So we have a lot coming up for y'all, and we're super excited to officially launch, to get the TikTok and the YouTube channel and the Instagram and the email list. All that is coming. All the things are coming. Literally. So thank you so much for those who tuned in live. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Thank you for pivoting over here to YouTube. I didn't know if we're gonna be able to pull it off. So I didn't necessarily give you all the details. To find us if you found us is not by accident. Thank you for being here. We're gonna definitely post this. So for those who are like, ooh, I want my, friend to see this, or want to share it with my Do It Collective, absolutely, we'll post the link and you'll be able to find it. Right now we're in the middle, or sorry, at the end of the Black Maternal Health Festival. And we have more things happening today. This is not the only thing, this is just the first part of the day. And tonight, I want to invite y'all that we're having a live dance party. And I would love for y'all to join us. We're going to stream live on Instagram. We're going to be in the Zoom room. We have a wonderful DJ Organic Little Baby, who was one of my students and is also a mom now. She's based out in Atlanta. And I'm super excited for us to shake our arse together and just cultivate that Black joy. This whole week has been so powerful, such potent medicine. I'm so happy I went along with it, because really the thought came to me about 6 weeks ago.
I know, I've been amazed with how quickly you were able to pull this off with some of the people involved. And it's such a testament. We had this conversation about sometimes the universe trying to birth concepts through you.
Yeah.
And you feel those contractions, you better just go ahead and surrender and let it come through.
I started off, it's like when you're in labor and you just wake up in transition.
Yes,
that's absolutely what happened.
Like, whoa, I feel something.
Whoa, it's like I'm already 8 centimeters. So you're already way in it. You slept through all the other parts of it.
I'm so glad you trusted
But you already did it before, so your body has some muscle memory, so it's going a little faster maybe, right? And I'm so grateful that it happened. I'm so happy it happened. This is also a fundraiser, you all, okay? So this festival is connected to a fellowship, and we'll be having, this is the inaugural Black Maternal Health Festival. Our theme is activating our agency and self-determination, but it's also the inaugural Black Midwives Fellowship that will be happening October 13th to 28th. I'll be bringing 12 Black midwives and learning midwives with me to Mother Health International's birth center in Uganda, an organization that holds very near and dear to my heart. I went there as a learning midwife and bloomed into a midwife, a competent, skilled midwife through my time going there and being in community there. And I'm so honored to bring 12 midwives with me, because a part of the Afro-Future is that we have midwives. That we have midwives. I want y'all to be like, I can't find no job. Okay, but I want the next problem to be like, how are we going to incorporate midwives into the homes?
Yes.
But we have so many of them, because right now it was like, boom, okay, whatever y'all need, y'all could just do not regulated anymore, non-regulated, non-criminalized. There's not enough midwives to take care of all of the bodies that we would need to take care of.
No.
There's not enough midwives for all the Black mommies. And right now, the World Health Organization is saying that we need 900,000 midwives in the next 10 years.
Can you imagine? We went into a space where when you walk into the birth, the auntie cooking in the kitchen and the one rubbing your feet and the one filling the birth tub, any of them could be your midwife.
Exactly.
We can work, and then when we have such abundance, we can work in concert with one another, which is so much better for our nervous systems as well. We at least have the option.
It's more sustainable. That's why it's going to also save lives. They project that it's going to save 4.3 million lives will be saved. And it's not that we're only serving Black people. We're serving all people, like we always have done, we always do right now. It's just that when we have this number achieved, then we also have a way healthier experience. So thank you all for being part of the festival. You can still sign up for it. The whole entire festival, we had about 30 plus shares sessions, is going to live and exist in my community-based subscription called the Virtual Circle. Go to my website, www.sumistouch.com. Go to my Instagram, Sumis Touch. Go on to this YouTube channel in the description. We'll put all the links and all the things that you need to find. And look out for our podcast line.
Yes.
Have a wonderful, wonderful day, y'all. Peace.
Take care. Aloha.
Much love. Big